When both you and the narcissist fall into silence, the atmosphere doesn't soften, it destabilizes. Something snaps beneath the surface because for the first time, control slips out of someone's hands, and it isn't yours. Many people assume that mutual silence signals an ending, a quiet conclusion where emotions finally settle. In reality, this is where the psychological tension sharpens. This is the moment the narcissist's inner structure starts to fracture, while your nervous system begins its slow return to balance. What unfolds next is rarely discussed, yet it determines whether the cycle truly ends or quietly restarts. Understanding this terrain is essential, because awareness here is what prevents you from ever being pulled back in. The first internal shift on the narcissist side is what can be described as a recalibration process. It doesn't announce itself with drama or confrontation. It happens privately, internally, and strategically. Silence forces them into analysis, not introspection. Where you interpret your withdrawal as protection or healing, they interpret it as a variable to decode. From a psychological standpoint, narcissists don't process silence as an emotional boundary. They process it as missing data. Their focus isn't what did I do wrong, but why did I lose leverage? The absence of your response becomes a problem to solve, not a signal to respect. Instead of reflecting on harm caused, they begin running internal scenarios. Did you detach emotionally? Did someone else capture your attention? Are you testing them? Are you attempting to regain control? This uncertainty destabilizes them because narcissistic psychology relies on predictability. When your reactions disappear, their internal sense of dominance weakens. Silence becomes threatening because it removes the feedback they use to regulate their fragile self-image. In this phase, your quiet presence or absence becomes something they monitor rather than accept. Contrary to what many expect, they often don't reach out immediately. Their silence is not peace. It's calculation. They may observe from a distance, checking your social presence, watching who interacts with you, tracking subtle signs of emotional availability. This surveillance isn't about missing you, it's about assessing whether access still exists. Narcissists tend to assume that those they once controlled will eventually return, because past patterns taught them that emotional guilt, fear, or hope usually pulls people back. Your silence, in their mind, is temporary resistance, not a final boundary. As long as you remain quiet, they rely on old conditioning to do the work for them. They expect discomfort to push you into reaching out. When that doesn't happen, the recalibration intensifies. Doubt creeps in. The possibility that their influence is weakening becomes real. Psychologically, this is where silence transforms from inconvenience into threat. In a narcissist's world, silence is never neutral. It either restores dominance or exposes vulnerability. And the longer you maintain it, the more unstable their internal narrative becomes. What makes this moment so revealing is the emotional contrast between you and them. While you experience silence as loss, they experience it as disruption. Your inner world is heavy with processing, sorting through emotional exhaustion, broken trust, cognitive dissonance, and the grief of who you had to become to survive the relationship. You're not just missing them, you're confronting how much of yourself was suppressed to maintain harmony. From a psychological perspective, this phase mirrors withdrawal from emotional dependency. It affects sleep, memory, self-worth, and identity because your nervous system is recalibrating after prolonged stress. Their experience is entirely different. The narcissist does not sit with grief. They do not mourn connection or reflect on damage done. Instead, they feel irritation. Your silence interrupts their routine access to validation. Your attention, reactions, explanations, caretaking, even your pain. All of it previously reinforced their sense of significance. When that stream abruptly ends, it doesn't break their heart. It inconveniences their ego. Psychologically, this mirrors supply deprivation rather than emotional loss. You are dismantling an attachment bond while they are troubleshooting a system failure. You feel emptiness. They feel obstruction. You are rebuilding internal stability while they are recalculating strategy. This divergence becomes more visible with time. You begin to recognize how much emotional labor you carried and how distorted the balance truly was. They begin to notice that something once reliable, your responsiveness, is no longer functioning. That realization unsettles them, because it exposes the imbalance that once worked entirely in their favor. And this is the quiet truth beneath mutual silence. You are healing through absence, while they are destabilized by it. You are learning to exist without chaos, while they are struggling to function without control. The longer the silence holds, the clearer this difference becomes. And once you truly see it, the spell cannot be rebuilt. Your quiet withdrawal pulls you inward, toward reflection and repair, while it pushes them into irritation and wounded entitlement. What you carry during this silence is heavy and layered: grief, clarity, exhaustion, self-recognition. While what unsettles them has little to do with missing you and everything to do with losing the ease of your cooperation. When contact stops on both sides, the narcissist does not register that stillness as a shared pause or a respectful distance. They experience it as a threat. Silence, coming from someone they once directed and influenced, feels like disobedience. In the narcissist's psychological framework, relationships are built on hierarchy, not mutual exchange. They are accustomed to occupying the upper position, the one who provokes, withdraws, returns, and controls the emotional tempo. So when you stop responding, stop initiating, and stop offering attention, the structure they believed was fixed begins to wobble. Even if your intention is simply to protect your mental health or regain emotional balance, they translate your silence as defiance. In their internal world, quiet is never neutral. It signals resistance. It suggests a loss of authority. And that implication cuts deeper than any confrontation ever could. This is precisely why silence affects them more profoundly than anger or arguments. Conflict still keeps them relevant. Emotional reactions, even rage, confirm that they remain central in your inner life. Reactivity reassures them that they still matter, that they still have access. Silence, however, removes them from the emotional spotlight altogether. And that absence threatens the fragile story they rely on, that they are essential, dominant, and irreplaceable. Your lack of response forces them to face a possibility they avoid at all costs: that their power over you may not be absolute after all. Ambiguity is intolerable to a narcissist, and silence creates a void they cannot control or interpret. Rather than seeing your disengagement as a healthy boundary, they recast it as provocation. Their inner narrative twists to protect their ego. They may label you disrespectful, ungrateful, manipulative, or cruel. They often assume your silence is strategic, that you are trying to elicit a reaction or gain leverage, because projecting motives allows them to avoid acknowledging your exhaustion or pain. To them, everything must be a move in a game. Some narcissists respond by turning the silence into a competition, a test of wills they believe they must win. Others rewrite it as abandonment, convincing themselves they are the victim of betrayal, even if they spent months or years demeaning or neglecting you. In both cases, the meaning of your silence is rewritten to preserve their self-image. Understanding you is never the goal. Preserving superiority is. As this internal pressure builds, their sense of control begins to fracture. Your silence becomes an unspoken mirror reflecting their insecurity, and instead of tolerating that discomfort, they construct stories that restore their imagined dominance. They may reassure themselves that you will come back, because you always have. Or they may quietly plan ways to punish you emotionally for stepping out of your assigned role. In their mind, your disengagement threatens something they cannot admit. You may no longer be under their psychological influence. This is where the internal experience diverges sharply between you and them. For you, the absence of contact can feel like oxygen, room to think, to grieve, to finally comprehend what you endured. It offers space to reconnect with your own perceptions and emotional reality. For the narcissist, however, your absence creates a psychological vacuum. And into that vacuum rushes the one thing they spend their lives avoiding: the loss of control. They do not think in terms of mutual boundaries or shared distance. They see your withdrawal as a malfunction in the system that upheld their identity. Narcissists lack a stable internal sense of worth. Their self-esteem is assembled externally, piece by piece, through attention, reactions, and validation from others. You were part of that structure. Your emotions, your explanations, your habit of returning after conflict. All of it reinforced their sense of influence and importance. When you go silent, that reinforcement stops abruptly. That interruption exposes their dependence on your engagement, a dependence they refuse to acknowledge even to themselves. They believed they were the one directing the dynamic, the one with leverage. Your silence contradicts that belief. It suggests you may have stepped outside the role they scripted for you, and that destabilizes the identity they worked so hard to maintain. Without your reactions, there is nothing to provoke, nothing to twist, nothing to point to as proof of power. This absence becomes threatening not because they value the relationship in a genuine or emotionally mature way, but because it undermines the control that made them feel significant. Internally, restlessness sets in. They may replay old conversations, searching for clues they overlooked. They may wonder whether someone else has replaced them. They may quietly strategize how to regain dominance, even while remaining silent themselves. The quiet grows louder inside them, because unlike you, they have no idea what is happening on your side, and that uncertainty is something they cannot stand. That absence of visibility strips them of the fantasy that they can still anticipate your moves. Suddenly, they are no longer positioned at the center of your world, and that displacement is psychologically unbearable for them. What once felt like certainty turns into unease, entitlement morphs into suspicion, and arrogance gives way to anxiety, all ignited by something deceptively simple: your disappearance from their emotional radar. From the outside, mutual silence can look uneventful, almost dull. Internally, however, the narcissist enters a restless mental sequence driven by one urgent goal: regaining control. As the quiet stretches on, they instinctively reach for familiar compensatory behaviors meant to plug the hole your absence created. These reactions tend to follow recognizable patterns, not because they are spontaneous, but because they are psychological reflexes. Hoovering, baiting, and triangulation are not emotional gestures. They are tactical responses deployed when a narcissist senses their influence weakening. At first, they assume your silence is temporary. After all, they conditioned you to return. When that expectation fails, the panic begins to surface. Hoovering typically emerges once they realize you are not coming back on your own. This isn't about missing you in an emotionally grounded way. It's about stabilizing a shaken ego. They may reach out with warmth, nostalgia, or vulnerability, presenting themselves as reflective or remorseful. Sometimes they manufacture a crisis, hoping your empathy will override your boundaries. The tone shifts because the objective is not reconciliation, but reinstatement. They want the dynamic restored, not the relationship healed. If vulnerability feels too exposing or risky, they pivot to provocation. Baiting is designed to extract a reaction, any reaction at all. Whether it's jealousy, anger, or concern doesn't matter. What matters is becoming emotionally relevant again. They might post something calculated online, send a dismissive message, or stir conflict that pressures you to respond. Silence deprives them of leverage, so baiting becomes their way of poking at the connection, hoping to confirm they still have access to your emotional system. When neither softness nor provocation works, triangulation often follows. This is where third parties are introduced, not for genuine connection, but as props in a carefully crafted narrative. An ex, a new partner, a friend, even a family member may suddenly appear in stories meant to displace you or provoke comparison. They may exaggerate your silence to cast themselves as the injured party or showcase someone else's admiration to spark insecurity. The aim is simple: to pull you back into proving your worth or reclaiming your place. None of these behaviors indicate love or attachment in the healthy sense. They reveal dependence. A narcissist's identity relies on external feedback, and when you remove yourself as a source, they scramble to repair the rupture. Hoovering, baiting, and triangulation are attempts to reclaim psychological dominance, not to build emotional intimacy. They are driven by entitlement, fear, and a destabilized ego, responses triggered entirely by your refusal to engage. As the silence continues on both sides, something unexpected begins to take shape. While you may interpret the quiet as relief, grounding, or the start of closure, the narcissist experiences it as escalating discomfort. Your stillness does not register as peace to them. It registers as lost control. Because their sense of self is propped up by the reactions of others, especially those they once influenced, your absence activates an internal alarm system. What matters most to understand here is that your quiet calms you, but unsettles them. Narcissists require constant emotional stimulation to maintain their fragile self-image. Attention, admiration, conflict, drama. Any form of engagement that keeps them central in someone else's emotional life will do. When that supply is cut off, their internal structure begins to wobble. They lack the ability to self-soothe or regulate without external input, and your silence removes that stabilizing feedback. Initially, they may pretend it doesn't matter, projecting indifference or even relief. This is a defense, not a truth. As time passes, the emptiness becomes impossible to ignore. Without your attention reinforcing their inflated self-concept, they start to feel diminished, unseen, replaceable, insignificant. These sensations strike directly at their deepest fear: being ordinary, invisible, or unimportant. While you use the quiet to regain your footing and rebuild your sense of self, they experience the same quiet as a void that threatens the identity they've constructed. Meanwhile, something very different unfolds within you. Without the constant tension, unpredictability, and emotional whiplash, your nervous system begins to settle. Mental fog lifts, perspective returns. You start to recognize your inherent worth and reclaim the parts of yourself that were muted or sacrificed to keep the dynamic intact. In the same silence that destabilizes them, you begin to stabilize, and that contrast is where the real shift takes place. In the stillness, you begin to see clearly, while for them the same quiet turns into inner disorder. As the silence stretches on, that contrast sharpens. Your mind settles. There's spirals. They start replaying conversations, rewriting scenes, inventing explanations for your absence because uncertainty is something they cannot tolerate. What they long for isn't the relationship itself, but the mirror you once held up through your reactions. Your responses reflected importance, power, and control back to them. Without that reflection, their inner structure starts to wobble. So while the quiet nourishes you, it unsettles them, and the difference between those experiences becomes impossible to ignore. As you move deeper into that calm, parts of you that were buried begin to surface again. Your intuition, your preferences, your emotional clarity slowly return. At the same time, they feel the opposite happening. Pieces of the identity they built, an identity reinforced by your attention and emotional labor, start slipping away. What feels grounding and restorative to you feels threatening to them because it exposes how dependent they were on your engagement. The silence reveals a truth that was always there. The peace that frees you is the same space that dismantles them from the inside. When the quiet fully settles, something subtle but profound starts to unfold within you. It can feel confusing at first, even contradictory, relief mixed with disorientation. For a long time, your nervous system lived on high alert. Narcissistic dynamics condition you to stay vigilant, scanning constantly for shifts in mood, tone, or threat. Your body learned to expect emotional turbulence, even during moments that appeared calm. That state of hypervigilance doesn't disappear overnight. In the beginning, silence can feel unsettling. You might feel restless, uneasy, or even suspicious of the calm, as if the absence of conflict signals danger rather than safety. That reaction isn't a flaw in you, it's a physiological response. Your body adapted to survive chaos, and now it needs time to relearn what safety feels like. Survival mode doesn't switch off instantly just because the source of stress is gone. As days pass, the mental fog begins to thin. Without the constant need to anticipate manipulation or emotional eruptions, your thoughts start to organize themselves naturally. You notice that your sleep deepens. Your breathing slows. Moments of genuine stillness begin to appear. Moments that once felt impossible. This is your nervous system recalibrating, recognizing that it no longer has to stay on guard. Healing begins not through confrontation or explanation, but through the simple absence of threat. With that recalibration comes the return of your emotional capacity. Energy that was once drained by managing their needs, crises, and expectations comes back online. You regain the ability to feel your own emotions without them being distorted or dismissed. You start making choices based on what aligns with you, not what keeps the peace. This is the quiet reclamation of self, clear thinking, emotional autonomy, and a sense of inner authority that no longer depends on someone else's approval.